Yo, what's going on, snipers, and welcome back to our National Players Throwback 2000 franchise mode here in NHL 24. So in last episode we had the year 2 draft. We also had the re-sign stage, and it was a pretty good draft for us, I would say, obviously considering the fact we got Jason Spezza, which is going to be an exciting prospect to build around once he actually gets to the NHL. As you can see, he is 77 at 18 with medium elite potential, and he's by far our best prospect that we have coming up in the system. We also have guys like Jay McClement now, Marek Svato, so we're starting to build up a decent prospect pool. Obviously we need more elite talent still to build around, but I think obviously this is a good starting point, and hopefully it works from here on out. We also drafted a medium elite goaltender in a generated guy in Sedin. We could say that he is the brother of Henrik and Daniel Sedin for some reason, if we really want to. He's obviously not twins with them, but he is like a younger brother, we could just say, for the fun of the series or something like that. But in general, very excited just to see what these prospects turn out to be like. Hopefully once Spezza gets to the NHL, he ends up being that elite playmaker he was in at like 2006 era to 2000 and I think it was like 12 or so, where he was like really good. So obviously that's what I'm kind of hoping for with him in being like a first line center for us down the road, because obviously at the moment we don't really have that number one center for the future. We do have like David Legwand, but I don't think he's going to be that number one guy, so I think he could be more of like a 2/3C. So having Spezza is very nice to have for our roster. So very excited to see what this team is looking like in a number of drafts ahead from this, like especially after the 2003 draft. I think that's going to be one of those drafts that definitely help build us our prospect pool a lot more so than it currently is. But anyways, enough of me rambling. Let's get into your guys' comments and see what you guys have to say about last episode, and then we will get into free agency and also starting up a little bit of the 2001-02 season. So the first comment is from Sandro Taku, who says, "Not sure how I feel about Patrick Sharp going to Tampa Bay. This might not be a popular take, but I would let Spezza spend another year in the juniors before signing him. You're still going to be a bad team next year, and you don't want to potentially stunt his growth by putting him as a third or fourth line center right away." And yeah, I don't know for sure what I'm going to do with Spezza. I think I'm probably going to leave him unsigned because he is listed right now as a depth forward, so kind of putting him in like a fourth line role isn't really ideal considering he's an offensively based guy. Because obviously it would make sense if he was in the top 6, but at the same time the top 6 isn't really fully built up yet. So I think obviously waiting maybe a year or two would be probably good for Spezza, because like maybe after 1 year of being unsigned, he's up to like an 82, 83 and has a chance to win the Calder once he gets to the NHL. So I think leaving him unsigned is probably what we're going to end up doing, even though he technically could play in the NHL right away. We would rather wait just maybe at least 1 season and then try and get him into the lineup instead, rather than rushing him and maybe stunting his growth. The next comment is from Flame Husky, who says, "I'd sign a few defenders just to flip them at the deadline. Spezza should spend a year in the minors before coming up." And I agree again, once another person says that Spezza should spend a year in the minors. Obviously Spezza can't play in the AHL though, because he was playing in the CHL, so he will have to stay in junior in Windsor for a year. But yeah, I do agree about letting him stay a year in junior before actually coming over. And he is also saying to sign some few defenders to flip at the deadline. I think we might actually sign a couple defenders, because if we look at our defensive core here at the moment, you can see we have Hal Gill, Kimmo Timonen, and Skrastins, who are definitely guaranteed to be in our defensive core. Tamander probably too, because I don't think he's actually a 76. I think it's just morale related. Vopat could easily be in the AHL or a depth defenseman if needed. And then we have Lintner and Miller. So we technically do have like 7 defenders. However, they aren't the best defenders, so it would be nice to kind of upgrade our defensive core a little bit. Obviously, I think I would rather have Miller and Lintner in the lineup over somebody like Vopat, maybe over Tamander, just based on the age, but not really 100% sure on that case. So one of these guys like Vopat probably goes back to the minors for another year. Maybe one of these guys becomes a depth defender just because they don't have much potential. And then Tamander probably will still play, but I am going to probably try and sign ourselves 2 defensemen to try and just like give our defensive core a little bit more value on it that we could potentially flip away, or maybe we even just run with that defensive core or hold on to the guys that we sign, just because maybe they're younger options than some of the other dudes we have on the roster currently. So we will definitely look at the defender list in free agency in a little bit. The next comment is from Jared the Rabbit, who says, "Number 1, for the Polish players, I would name him Karl Godlewski or Norbert Robel instead of Kay Generous and Nelson Volpatti. Number 2, Milbury's going to Milbury. Number 3, for the Danish player, instead of Jace Appleby, I would have him named Joachim Anderson, generated for him. Number 4, love that you drafted All-Star legend John Scott. Number 5, how do we know that F. Tootin isn't Feder Tootin, especially since this was his draft he was taken in? Number 6, Emery signed a PTO with the Bolts in 2015, but was released during the preseason. Number 7, that might be Ryan Holwig that went to St. Louis. Number 8, that could be Alexander Perezhogin headed to Buffalo, Alexei Kagorodov going to Florida, since this would be the draft both were first eligible for. Number 9, Adams actually played with Florida, doing so in 2001. And yeah, a lot of those guys like Perezhogin, Kagorodov, and Tootin, I honestly completely forgot that it was their draft classes. I obviously would have made them for those draft classes, so those likely are those guys. I just completely like forgot, because I made so many prospects and stuff in this draft that it's honestly so easy to remember or forget who I made, especially considering I haven't played with this roster build too much. So likely you were right with it being Feder Tootin, with Perezhogin going and Kagorodov going as well, and also about Ryan Holwig. And a lot of those other things that you brought up were pretty interesting. And yeah, I'm really happy that we managed to draft John Scott just for the memes. I don't know if he's going to really grow into anything huge for this roster, but it still gives us at least a nice little meme player for the team, as you can see here. If we go to, I think he was a winger, right? Yeah, left winger here. John Scott, bottom 6 forward, 61 and 18, so maybe he could become a bottom 6 forward. That's like a 76 overall, but obviously not going to get super much growth being an enforcer, but still gives us a nice tall face puncher to bash in some faces and protect our young guys like Jason Spezza, so excited for that. The next 2 comments are from Michael Dos. The first one says, why don't you look for a deal to get Zetterberg as you have picks to trade? And the reason why I'm not trying to trade for Henrik Zetterberg is just because I feel like Detroit shouldn't be trying to trade him. They are still trying to trade him, which means likely he is going to get flipped at some point, but hopefully they hold on to him. Also, I know you said that we technically have picks that we could trade for him, but his value is pretty damn high up, as you can see. Like, I think in order to get him, we'd have to give up like a first round selection. Like a second rounder doesn't even have half as much value as Henrik Zetterberg does. A first round pick is even a little bit less than that still, which is a lot to give up for a team like us that's currently in a rebuild status. Obviously Zetterberg's a great player, but I would prefer if he tries to stay in Detroit rather than getting flipped away. Obviously he could get flipped to an AI team, but to us I just think it would kind of like build us up a little bit too quick, and I want to kind of take it draft at a time, you know? Not just making trades for elite players if possible. Michael also says, no need to rush Spezza, play him 1 year in the AHL as Nashville isn't pushing for the playoffs just yet. And obviously, like I was just saying, he isn't AHL eligible, so once again, he'll spend 1 year in junior before coming over to our NHL roster, which is okay. And hopefully, maybe he has a chance to win the Calder for the 2002-03 season rather than the 01-02 season. And the last and final comment is from Ryan the Sharky, who says, I think you should let Spezza play a year in the juniors before signing him so he could enter the league at a higher overall. I also think you should sign a defender or two to make sure your defensive core isn't completely atrocious. And I totally agree. So that's basically similar to what like Husky was saying about leaving Spezza in junior as well, and also about signing some defensemen. So that's exactly what we're going to do. It's good that you guys are all on the same page about keeping Spezza out of the league for now. So hopefully he gets some good growth and he's ready to go for 2002-03. If not, maybe even 03-04, we can make him make his debut. He doesn't have to get rushed into the lineup super quick, because we're obviously a little bit more patient with this team considering we're in a rebuild status still. But let's get to the free agent signings, because we are going to sign ourselves 2 top 6 defenders. Now, what's interesting is when I was looking at these defenders, if we scroll down here to the guys I was going to sign, I was thinking of signing Rhett Warner because he's only 26. He's a young defenseman. I was also thinking of signing Mike Wilson, who's only 26. Now, the funny thing is, before I even actually thought of signing both these guys, like I saw both of them, I'm like, maybe I could sign both of them. I didn't even remember, but at first, I was just like, wait a second, weren't both these guys traded for each other? So I went over to HockeyDB. Obviously, you guys can't see this on your screen right now, but I went to HockeyDB to see this trade. So back in 1999, basically, Rhett Warner was traded from Florida with a 5th-round pick to the Buffalo Sabres to get Mike Wilson. So they actually were traded for each other. Now, what's interesting about that 5th-round pick is that 5th-round pick was actually Ryan Miller. So basically, the Florida Panthers traded Rhett Warner in the pick that became Ryan Miller for Mike Wilson. So that's quite a bit to give up, obviously, to get Mike Wilson, because Mike Wilson really wasn't a huge defenseman. Like, he wasn't the best guy on paper. But still, it's kind of crazy that that 5th rounder ended up becoming one of the best goalies that Buffalo's ever had. So anyways, we're going to sign both those guys because they're young, and maybe they'll replace somebody like Matisse Tamander because they are a little bit younger. They're also decent, probably trade value, because they are younger defenders. They both bring a little bit more defensive edge to our team too, because Rhett Warrener had 15 points last year, was minus 15 on Buffalo, which is not great, but the year before he was a nice plus 18, and they did actually make the playoffs in year one. Year two, they did not. He's also a right-handed shot, which is good too, because obviously we need more right-handed defensemen, so I'm going to just give Rhett Warrener exactly what he's asking for, and we'll see if he accepts that deal. And then Mike Wilson, on the other hand, in terms of his stats, he played 3 games in the NHL in year one and then didn't play again, so he was used as a depth defenseman. And then last season, he was in Louisville, apparently, and he had 50 points in 82 games, which is kind of surprising based on the fact that he's a DFD, but at least he was in probably a rough AHL or something like that, so he was pretty good. I'll also give him a 2-year deal because he could be a top 6 defenseman for us. We might not even need to trade these guys this season, but gives us some younger options, because I was looking at some of the other guys available like Mike Rathje and stuff like that, but they're all guys that want to get paid a ton of money, and I also don't feel like I really want to sign them. I want to see where they go instead. So I think signing some younger defenders will definitely be nice for this team to at least maybe see if one of these guys wants to stick around long term. There was also like the option of taking in like somebody like Brad Brown, but Brad Brown, I'd say, would be a little bit worse than somebody like Mike Wilson. Doesn't have as much offensive capability in a sense. Well, actually, I think he did. No, he didn't. He was like a physical defenseman, if I remember right. Yeah, very physical defenseman. And I don't know if I really want the penalty minutes. He also hasn't been super good in Chicago, so I decided not to bring him in instead. But I think those 2 young defensemen should help. Also, I could have brought in, I guess, Nolan Pratt or Christian Laflamme, because they are 25, but I'd prefer to go with those 2 26-year-olds for now. Could have went for Sammy Salo, but I would prefer to see if he goes to sign with the Canucks or something like that. So those are going to be our only free agent signings. I don't remember if I needed to bring any scouts or coaching staff in, right? Looks like coaching staff-wise, I don't really need to bring anything in. Scout-wise, oh yeah, I had to assign all the scouts at the beginning of the season. Oh, that's going to be fun, because we have not done that yet. So how much scouts do we have? 18 out of 20. So I could hire 2 more scouts if I want to. So let's hire 2 more scouts as well while we're at it, just to give us more depth. Actually, I should maybe hire more than that, because there's currently 3 6A rated scouts, and we have some C rated guys, right? Yeah, so I could get rid of all these bottom guys almost. So I could get rid of Varlamov, so that's 1, 2 on there, 3 on Beach, 4 on Kreutzer, 5 on Reitz, and then 6 on Keefe. Which means we're going to still have 1 C-rated scout, but still we're going to start upgrading our scouting pool, because obviously we need the best scouts possible. I can actually assign a B scout too instead of that C, so I will do that too. So we're going to hire 7 scouts, and I'm going to have to reassign them all at the beginning of the season. And then hopefully we could do a good job in terms of finding some good prospects in the upcoming drafts. So there's 7. Yep, there's 7. So we got to fire that C-rated one. Actually, we have enough room for more than that, so I could fire this one. I could actually hire another 2 more scouts. So let's hire 2 more scouts as well while we're at it. And then obviously reassigning all of them should give us a good chance at finding out some good stuff about the upcoming draft classes. Alright, so there you go. 9 are offered, I believe, too. Yeah, offered 9 contracts, and we have 11 out of 20, so that makes sense. And that's all good and ready to go. Alright, so let's advance a few days and see if our guys accept that we offered contracts to. And then also, obviously, we'll take a look at what the AI is signing and stuff like that for the first month of free agency, because I am obviously curious on where a lot of faces are going to go. So we get a scout there. Of course, we're going to get probably all these scouts, because we're probably the only ones that are offering contracts to these scouts. It's going to be exciting to get actually some good results with finding out about these draft classes, because obviously we haven't had the best results in terms of the drafts. I didn't even realize I offered a contract to Phil Housley as a scout. So Phil Housley, who recently retired, he actually became a scout, and he's now going to be a scout for our team, which is funny. I didn't realize I even did that. That's kind of funny. I didn't even realize I did that. So we have Phil Housley as a scout, which is pretty damn cool. And we should be finding out about those free agents soon, which it looks like Rhett Warrener and Mike Wilson are both on board to join the Nashville Predators, so that's exciting. So now if we look at our defensive core going into next season, you can see this is likely what we'd be running with. I mean, Vopat probably gets sent down, like I said, and we use Tamander as a top 6 defenseman. Probably Linton or Miller is going to be depth as well. But our defensive core definitely a lot stronger with the addition of Warner and Wilson, and both of them being relatively young. I think obviously some other teams would be very interested in them. They're also the same age as pretty much everybody on our defensive core, because Hal Gill, Kimmo Timonen, Carlos Grastins are also 26. So it makes our defensive core younger and hopefully a little bit better too. Especially when the plus minuses on like the top 6 last season were really bad. I want to improve that a little bit if possible, even though we're trying not to make the playoffs again next season. So we should be good in terms of everything in terms we signed. Let's simulate a month and see what happens for some free agent signings. See if any big faces change teams or go to some teams that you wouldn't really expect. As we get a trade offer for Thomas Vokoun, so we'd have to trade a third and Vokoun for a third and a fourth. That's not even worth it in the slightest, and I don't really want to move Vokoun just yet. I forgot that Lindner was still an RFA, as he has accepted the qualifying offer. That's good. Adrian Aucoin on 1 year left isn't bad, but I don't really want to make a trade involving Vokoun. Vokoun is probably still the future of this team goaltending wise for now, until Sedin gets ready and DiPietro's ready to take that next step. So I don't think trading Vokoun right now makes a lot of sense for our roster. All right, let's see if there's been any off-season trades first before we take a look at the signings. There has not been. Signing-wise, what do we got here? Any crazy things have changed? Let's see. If you guys see anything, though, that's crazy that I don't notice, let me know. And obviously I can mention it in next episode. So looks like Arizona's signing a bunch of goaltenders. Manny Fernandez goes to the Islanders. Pat Flynn to the Flyers, which I'm pretty sure he actually played there at one point. Jody Hull going back to Ottawa, which is obviously where he played a good chunk of his career, or a couple years at least. What else we got here? Rob DeMaio signed in Toronto, which is kind of funny because Ottawa in real life hired him as like a some sort of personnel. I don't remember exactly. I think it's like something scouting wise, so it's kind of funny. What else we got here? Hans Janssen, Jorgen Janssen are not related, but that's kind of funny. Shad Kilger to San Jose. Not a lot of huge names so far. A lot of these guys are closer to retirement, though, like Thomas Sandstrom going to the Islanders would have been big in the earlier 90s. Not at this stage, though, because he was out of the league already. Kevin Stevens to Atlanta. Anything interesting that makes me be like, what the hell is this? Todd Simpson actually played in Montreal, so that's kind of cool to see him sign with the Canadiens, I'm pretty sure. Sammy Salo signed with the Edmonton Oilers. That's an interesting one, considering obviously in real life he was a Vancouver Canuck. So I wonder how Canucks fans feel about that. Wes Walz going back to Calgary, which I think he started the series in Calgary. I feel like maybe not, actually. I don't know exactly, but I know he played for Calgary at one point in his career. Grant Fear signs in Ottawa. That's an interesting one. What else we got here? Ken Reggett going to Toronto. I feel like Ken Reggett actually played for the Leafs, but I don't remember. I honestly don't. Guerin was already in Montreal at the beginning of his franchise mode. What else we got here? Keith Jones in Philadelphia, which I'm pretty sure he was already at the beginning too. Bob Bugner signs in Ottawa. Todd White signs in Tampa Bay. Thomas Holmstrom also signing with the Edmonton Oilers. That's a pretty nice signing for the Oilers. Obviously, the Oilers are still not the best team at this point in time, as Chicago apparently has signed Marc Bergevin. That's a bit of a weird one, considering Marc Bergevin was actually, I think, in management with the 2010 Chicago Blackhawks, if I remember right. I think so. So that's kind of an interesting one. What else we got here? A lot of signings from the Canadiens, all defensemen. Brad Brown signs with them, which I think Brad Brown actually played there, or maybe it was a different Brown. Darren McCarty signed with the Dallas Stars. Damn, that's an interesting one. Gives Dallas a little bit more grit in their bottom six. Nice little addition there. Just imagine him and like Brendan Morrow on the same line. That'd be pretty physical, because Brendan Morrow threw a lot of hits in his career. What else we got here? Our former guy, Ville Peltonen, has signed with the Buffalo Sabres. Obviously, after his time in Nashville, though, he went back to Finland for a number of years before he signed with Florida in real life. What else we got here? Not seeing anything like huge to bring up. Sergei Brilin to Atlanta. Alright. But there wasn't a huge free agent class, really. Jason Cullimore signs with Chicago quite a bit earlier than normal, but that's still cool. John Clem signs with Chicago, which is actually where he played in like 2000. Where was it? 2003? Or was it later than that? I know he played with Chicago, but I can't remember what year. Might have been around this point in time. Mikhail Samuelsson signs with Toronto. Martin Lapointe to Edmonton as well. Oh, baby. Martin St. Louis has signed with the Tampa Bay Lightning on a 1-year free agent contract after he spent a little bit of time in Toronto in this. But still, that's actually really sick. And I know Saturn Taku is going to be like, damn, man, that's awesome to see. Because obviously, for him being a Lightning fan, Martin St. Louis signing in Tampa Bay is a major stepping stone. So that'll be interesting to see if he actually plays like he did in real life in Tampa Bay. Because, yeah, that's a really big signing for that team. He doesn't obviously have the most time to grow into being a really good superstar in this, but still, that's really cool. Richard Zednik signs in Dallas. Okay. Adam Denmarsh to Atlanta. Pat Verbeek signed in Colorado. Not a surprise that he's going to another cup contending team. I think he ended his career with a really good Detroit Red Wings team, if I remember right. Tom Barrasso in Chicago. Okay. Vaclav Verado, Washington. John McClain in Colorado as well, going for a cup, of course. Jochen Hecht gets a 5-year deal out of RFA status, so that's interesting. Felix Potvin gets a 6-year deal from the Edmonton Oilers, and they also get Kevin Weeks for a 4-year deal. So they have both their goalies locked up on 4+ year contracts. That's kind of interesting. I hope that their AHL goalies aren't good goalies. Shane Doan signs a 3-year deal with the New York Islanders. That's a really weird one. Marty Turco signs with the Rangers on a 2-year deal. Stan Julia doesn't matter too much. Doug Gilmour goes to Detroit on a 1-year deal. I could see it. 6-year deal for Patrick Lalime with the Rangers. That's a crazy one. Olaf Kolza going back to Washington after, I guess, a little bit of a contract dispute. Donald Adet to Ottawa. Michael Pekka gets a 6-year deal from the Detroit Red Wings. Oh my god. Detroit is loading up, and they still have Zetterberg. They still have a young Pavel Datsyuk. That Detroit team is going to be good a lot of the series, I think. Damn. Mike Thrachy gets a 6-year deal with San Jose out of RFA status, I think, if I'm not mistaken. Mike Dunham signs with Florida. That's our former goalie, of course. Tommy Salo signs a 5-year deal also with Florida. A lot of teams are loading up on goalies, apparently. Jeff Sanderson to the Rangers. Jason Blake signs in Tampa as well. Our former defenseman Drake Berehowski signs a 3-year deal with the Edmonton Oilers, which he actually played with Edmonton at one point. So that's kind of neat. Mike Sillinger to Pittsburgh. Patrice Brisebois to Edmonton. I feel like Edmonton was super busy free agency-wise. And the big one, also, Adam Foote signs with the Boston Bruins on a 3-year deal. All right. So a lot of change to teams' lineups. I want to see where Martin St. Louis fits into Tampa's roster, because I hope that he gets a good chance to actually become the Martin St. Louis that we all know. Like if we look at the forwards, he's an 82 overall. Is he like the top right winger almost? He's the second best right winger on the team. And then Mike Johnson got paid apparently some big bucks. Damn. So Martin St. Louis is likely never going to be a first-line right winger on this team, just because Mike Johnson got like a massive deal. So likely St. Louis is going to be playing alongside Jason Blake, who was recently signed, and also Brian Holzinger, who apparently jumped to an 87. But there is also Brad Richards, who could actually play with St. Louis potentially on that second line at some point. So that's exciting. I really like that Tampa decided to give a chance to Martin St. Louis. Because obviously, like, he wasn't playing up super good, but he had 7 points in 15 games with Toronto after Calgary decided to flip him away. So, will be interesting to see if he becomes a good player in Tampa Bay like in real life. Alright, so there is the first month of free agency. Let's begin the sim up to next season. And then I'll probably have to make a cut where I'm basically readjusting all the scouts and stuff like that. So that way we have them in the correct regions. Mike Watt's still an RFA. I almost forgot about him. Let's get him signed up, considering we don't even have a salary cap to deal with. So obviously we're going to sign these RFAs up. They're nice and cheap anyways. So we'll do that. And you can take a 2-way deal. And that is good. But yeah, I'm excited to see what the team's like next season. I don't think we're going to be still good, but obviously I'm hoping for some of the young guys to take charge a little bit. Like Legwand, hopefully he has a big year ahead of him. And maybe also Ladislav Nagy improves his defensive play, because obviously last season that plus-minus was very terrible. So I'm hoping for a little stepping stones that makes this team a little bit better. All right, so let's get to edit lines here and set up this roster the way we want it. So let's go to roster moves first and see if there's anybody worth calling up for the NHL team. So I don't know why Vokoun dropped to a 78 backup. Must be just based on morale. But still, it's going to be him and DiPietro. Mason in the AHL. Oh, yeah, I forgot about the goalie situation. That's interesting. I might have to still trade away Mason. I could leave Mason as a third string in the AHL for now. But it's going to be DiPietro and Vokoun. Defensively, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 defensemen. We don't need 8 defenders in the NHL, so I'm going to send Vopot down because he's the oldest of the bunch. Yeah, we just definitely don't need him in the NHL. Timander shouldn't be sent down, though. Who got called up? That shouldn't be. Timander definitely shouldn't be down there, unless I want to keep Timander down there because we have Flintner and stuff. I'm going to send Craig Miller down as well. Because Timander should be actually playing on the top 6 defensive core this season. Because he's not actually 76. I think it was just morale or something like that. So that's good defensively. We got 7 defenders. What else we got here forward-wise? Anybody that needs to come up. Marian Cesar, still a minor scoring forward. But we got Walker, Sullivan, and Valachevic. That's decent. Nagy, Johansson, Hartnell, and Cote. So that's 7. That's fine. Center-wise, we got 3. We need 2 depth forwards, I think, to get called up. So I guess I will have to call up Denis Arkhipov. He might actually get thrown into the lineup already. And Marian Cesar. Yeah, I think I'll call up both those guys rather than signing players, and then they might be thrown into the lineup right away. Alright, let's see what we got here. I'm going to take Cote out of the lineup because he's just an enforcer. He doesn't need to be in the lineup. And instead, I'm going to put in Denis Arkhipov because I want to get Arkhipov in the lineup for sure rather than being scratched. In terms of our actual lineup itself, we could go with Hartnell, Fitzgerald, Sullivan, Bordeleau, Valachevic. Actually, Nagy should probably be in the top 6 still. Let me see. Third line scoring forward for Johansson and Nagy. Hartnell as well. This is a tough decisions, man. Leguan should be probably higher in the lineup than Bordeleau and Fitzgerald. Yeah, I'm okay with putting Bordeleau as a 4th line center. I think that's alright. Arkhipov is a 76 on faceoff, so I'll leave him as a left winger for now. Mike Watt. Mike Watt should probably be higher in the lineup, but I don't think there's anywhere I could put him in. So we're probably going to have to use Marian Cesar as a depth option, which to be honest is okay because he's only got the bottom 6 potential. And then from a defensive standpoint, I will take Lintner out of the lineup and put Timander in or something like that. We'll put Wilson a little bit higher in the lineup. Timonen needs to be on the top pairing though. Yeah, something like that should work. So Timonen and Warner, Wilson and Gill, Scrashtons and Timander. Goalie-wise, Vokoun and DiPietro. Yeah, that works. That works. What about power play-wise? Hartnell, Johnson, Walker, Tiemann, Sullivan. That's okay, but it's -1. I feel like there's a young guy that needs to be on the power play still. Probably like Leguan. The thing is, who do I take out of the power play for Leguan? Probably Bordeleau again. So I'll put Leguan in this spot because I want the young guys obviously to get a lot of power play time. Hal Gill on the power play maybe doesn't work. Valachevic on the power play doesn't need to happen. Which means I could probably scoot Mike Watt into this power play as well. Should I get Denis Arkhipov on the power play as well? I don't know. I think that's fine. And then defensively, we'll go with something like that. It doesn't really matter too much on a lot of these units. Yeah, that should be good NHL-wise. So that's going to be our NHL team, which is not really the best on paper, but at least we have a lot of younger guys in the lineup like Leguan, who's getting an opportunity, Hartnell, Arkhipov, Mike Watt's still young, and then Cesar's depth. Yeah, obviously there's still a lot of ways to go with this roster, but it's still not bad. In terms of the AHL, let's just make sure everybody needs to be in the lineup is in the lineup, which there's no scratched forwards, so just make sure the lineup has the best prospects possible in the top line. Erat's the top liner, that's good. Adam Hall should probably be much higher in the lineup. He can technically play center since he's also a good face-off guy as a winger, so I'll move him into the top 6. Darren Hadar, I guess, could be higher up in the lineup over somebody like Gosselin for sure. Yeah, we'll do something like that. Oh, what the hell is that glitched out for? Perfect, that's fine there. Jonas Anderson could stay there because he's young. Tobler could go down to the 4th line, but that doesn't seem to help the chemistry. Oh, the AI signed me a friggin' defenseman as a center. That's kind of dumb. Huh, oh well. What else we got here? Miller, Hutchinson, Morrow, Fopot, Berenswig, and Skirbeck, okay. And Mason Lasic. That's fine. That's fine. I think we'll run with that. Obviously, the big prospect down there is Martin Erat. Yeah, I think that's good to go. I think that is good to go. Alright, so now that that's done, I'm going to make a quick cut, and I'm going to reassign all the scouts to their respective leagues, and then we'll probably only simulate a tiny bit of the season, not too much, just because obviously we don't want to simulate too much and then get like way ahead of ourselves. So let me make a quick adjustment, and I'll see you guys in a second. Okay guys, so all scouts have been reassigned. As you can see, we got 2 scouts in each of the CHL leagues as well as the American leagues, and then in terms of like Europe and Scandinavia, we got basically 1 in each region except for the Swedish Hockey League, because I usually have 2 there. I also usually have 2 in Russia, so that's what is currently set up. So everything is good to go in terms of the scouts, so we are ready, I think, to start up the 01-02 season. We'll probably only simulate like a month or so maybe like 10-15 games, and I'll show you guys also what the draft class has and stuff like that for the 02 draft, because obviously the 02 draft is still not a super strong draft, but next year's draft for the 03 one is going to be pretty damn good, so you guys will be excited to see that when we get to that point. But let's decline these trade offers for now. Apparently teams are offering us for Jan Vopot, but literally it's a 7th round pick for Vopot, which is not really something I really want, so I don't think it's worth trading away Vopot at the moment, but obviously at some point maybe he's one of those type of guys. This one's kind of intriguing. That pick, 2nd round pick from the Flyers, actually, wow, that's actually a lot better of an offer than I was expecting. However, we are giving up a 4th round pick in 2003 technically, which 2003 stacked draft class, but we do move up to a 2nd round by giving up Vopot. I want to look at this trade a little bit here, because Vopot obviously is not going to be here long term. He's in the AHL this season, but we could still use him as a depth option. We do get to move up 2 rounds though, but we also give up multiple 4th rounders. It might be worth it, but right now I'm not going to do it just because don't feel like it. Alright, so 2-1 in the preseason. Let's go to the first game of the actual season. We have a lot of games against Chicago in the first week of the season, which is kind of weird. Let me actually edit a trading block here because I don't really want Vokun on there. Or actually, Vopot could stay, maybe. We'll keep it the same. We'll just get rid of everything on our block here for the moment, just to get rid of some of those offers that were thrown at us. But why are we playing Chicago literally 4 times in the first month of the season? Like, do we play them again at any point in the season? I think we probably do, but this schedule is always so whack though with custom rosters. Like you can see, we literally play LA back-to-back Saturdays. We also play Detroit 3 straight Mondays. I don't understand it, but the schedule definitely kind of goes all crazy when you do custom rosters, but it is what it is. Alright, so yeah, let's simulate 1 month, and we'll take a look at some player stats. We'll take a look at the draft class and all that, but we're probably obviously not going to set up any trades and stuff like that for next episode. Probably that will be closer to the deadline again. But I just wanted to get a little bit of the season done and just kind of see how this team is doing under the new circumstances with some of the new defenders and also the younger guys in the lineup and stuff like that. Like, I'm hoping for some good years from like Nagy, Hartnell, that type of thing. And also hopefully we get good growth from Jason Spezza, who's in junior, of course. So Kimmo Timonen's been injured with a strained hamstring. Obviously, that's not a great injury to have, and it's not too long-term, but I am kind of glad that we had that injury because I hope that it makes our team fall off a little bit more because we're off to a little bit of an interesting start here. Hey, that's another interesting offer. We trade away our 6th-round pick, which is probably going to be nothing, and Vopot, who's nothing, for a 3rd-round pick. You know, I said I wasn't going to make any trades yet. I think I'm going to actually do this one because with the draft class quality that I have set up currently with my prospects and stuff, a 6th round pick this year in 2002 is literally nothing, probably. It's not going to be a low elite, my guess. Vopod is literally a depth defenseman, and we get a third-round pick for the stacked 2003 draft. We're going to accept this deal. I think that's going to be a no-brainer. So Vopod gets dealt, and I think we should be able to just go to edit AHL lines here. They did sign us a random player, so I can put now in the left winger here instead, and the defenseman can play in the actual defensive spot, which is good. So we'll just address that here quickly. They're signing me all these 48 guys that I basically nerfed. Extra lines as well. We'll put that left winger as an extra attacker, or actually we'll put the man, the myth, the legend, Martin Erat as an extra attacker, because I think that makes a lot more sense. Perfect. Alright, so that's ready to go. And our first month of action, we're 6-6-2. That's actually better than expected. We are currently second place in our division. However, you can see how tight this division actually is. We've also played the second most games in the division, so... Let's take a look at some player stats so far. So he was doing what? Greg Johnson's over point per game on this team. Is this the year that we decide to trade Greg Johnson, or do we still hold on to him until we try and win a Stanley Cup? Because Greg Johnson is a great player, and I would love to win a Stanley Cup with him. However, he is making us simulate a bit too good right now. Obviously, could come crashing down, but him and Scott Walker, both over point per game and a +10, which is a massive improvement defensively from last year. Johansson's even point per game too, and a +8. Steve Sullivan's just under point per game, and Nagy's almost point per game too. So those 5 guys have been doing really good. Legwand's got 7 points, so we're even getting some depth scoring, which is good too. Mike Watt's got no goals and only 4 assists. Yeah, he's not going to do that good being in the bottom 6 role without really much power play time. Okay, you can definitely see there's just still some problems on this roster, though, because they were really top 6 heavy. Our bottom 6 is struggling defensively. So I think eventually the legs will fall off on these top 6 guys, but is it the year to trade away one of these guys? But most of these guys actually play with the Preds for the rest of their career, and they're all locked up for at least two seasons. So I kind of want to hold on to all these guys as much as possible, but we are kind of simulating a lot better than expected here early on. From a defensive standpoint, Mike Wilson leads with 5 points, which is kind of weird that Kimmo Timonen only had 3 points through 12 games. I don't know why Kimmo Timonen's not simulating that well. Like, you think with how our top 6 has been that we'd get a good defenseman in terms of points, but no. Richard Lindner had 2 goals in 2 games as a depth option. But we are getting some solid defensive results in terms of plus-minus, but not offensively. And then from a goaltending perspective, Thomas Vokoun off to a good start, and same with Rick DiPietro. Both of them are playing good early on, so maybe the goaltenders are actually the reason why we're winning games. I don't know. Vokoun's back up to an 83, listed still as a backup, which is weird. And then obviously DiPietro's only a 78 at the moment. And then we also do still have Chris Mason in the AHL too, so kind of a weird season to start off with so far. Yeah, wasn't expecting to have a couple guys over point per game this early in the year. So there's that. I actually want to take a look. How are we in terms of the entire league at the first, like, 10 plus games or 14 games of the season? Okay, we're still not even in the top 10. Yeah, we're not a top 10 team. We're 13th, though, which is still way better than expected. I know it's still really early on, but in terms of offense, we're actually not as good as we look. We do have a lot of guys that are point per game or so, but we're still mid-table. And goals against per game wise, we are actually one of the better defensive teams right now. So, that's kind of strange. Not so good on the power play. Penalty kill looks good. So it looks like from a defensive standpoint, things are going good. And our top 6 is scoring. But compared to the rest of the league, our offense isn't as insane as it looks, which is interesting. So I think it will drop off at some point. Let's look at the draft class, and I think that'll probably be it for this episode after that. Because I obviously want to see what's in these 02 draft. Oh yeah, the Rick Nash draft. Yeah, that's right. So let's actually go by each position just to make this a little bit more interesting. So you guys can see the top goaltenders available in the 02 draft. Cam Ward, Antti Niemi, Kari Lehtinen, Josh Harding, Jeff Delorier, Curtis McElhinney, Hannu Toivonen. There's also, I think, a couple others like Michael Garnett. Who else? I think that was it in terms of goaltenders. Yeah, that's in terms of goalies. Actually, Adam Monroe as well. But nobody knows Adam Monroe unless you're a Chicago Blackhawks fan, maybe. Jason Bakashawa is also there. Tyler Wyman's still in the draft, too. And, yeah, I think that is it. Also, Andy Chiodo. Got a shout-out to Andy Chiodo, considering he has the same birthday as me. Tobias Stefan too, David Lenevue, Barry Brust. Those guys are going to go undrafted, but still it's kind of cool to have them in the draft class. Brent Cron as well. Still trying to get drafted. In real life, he was drafted back in 2000. But this scenario, he doesn't have as good potential, so he has not been drafted yet. And he's fallen back through multiple classes, which is kind of funny. Alright, defensively, the best defenseman is Duncan Keith. Which obviously, Duncan Keith would be the best probably fit defensively for this team, because obviously we don't have a great defensive core right now. Drafting somebody like Duncan Keith, maybe drafting somebody like Shea Weber in the 03 draft, it could really help out our defensive core quite a bit. But aside from Duncan Keith, there's a generated guy named Rohan Kearns. There's also Jay Bouwmeester in this draft class, Trevor Daley, Yoni Pikkinen, Ryan Whitney, and stuff like that. Like, there's a lot of players in this draft. I'm not going to name every single one of them. But you could definitely see that this draft class has a good chunk of players. Not anything super insane, I would say. But it's still some solid steals. Like Mark Giordano usually goes in the second round. I'm pretty sure I made him a low elite. So if we want to draft a defenseman, I think Mark Giordano is definitely one of those guys I would take in the second round. So I'm going to pin him just before I forget, because obviously I think he will be a really good player to add to this roster if we don't get Duncan Keith this year. So there is that. In terms of right wingers, the best is Alex Semin. You also have like Joffrey Lupul, Peter Peruka, some generated guys, a lot of good generated guys actually. There's also Joey Crabb, but Joey Crabb's not really that good of anything. Same with Patrick Dwyer, Cam Jansen. So not the best right wing pool. Left wing wise, you have Rick Nash, then it drops off to Pierre, Mark Bouchard, Chris Higgins, Alex Steen. So some solid names, but obviously the 02 draft, like I said, nowhere near as good as the 03. Like the 03 has like Patrice Bergeron and stuff like that in it, so you guys are going to be in for a treat when we get to that draft class. And center wise, the best apparently is this generated guy that's supposed to go first overall, which means, is he a franchise player, or is he just a high elite, or is he another medium elite? Lorenzo Jenner. That's an interesting one. An American playing in the QMJHL too. That's also kind of neat. But the next best center, Valtteri Filppula, Franz Nielsen, Matt Stajan, Max Talbot, Ryan Shannon. It's not a really good center draft for sure, other than that generated guy. Because that generated guy is supposed to go before Rick Nash and Duncan Keith, which I know for sure I made those guys medium elites. So there's a chance that Jenner is also just normal medium elite, but there's also a chance that he could be a franchise guy too, which is interesting. So anyways, there is that, and that's going to do it, guys, for this episode of our Nashville Predators Throwback 2000 franchise mode. So in next episode, we'll simulate more of the season. We'll probably simulate maybe up to the trade deadline already. We might go up to January 1st, something like that. Just simulate a nice little chunk of the season, see how our team's doing, obviously, and then make some decisions on trades we want to make, and also what we want to do in terms of like the off season ahead. Because drafting wise, obviously, we have a lot of things we need to build upon, but we are definitely a little bit over simulating here early on. But I think obviously the wheels should fall off at some point in time. So anything down below, and I'll see you guys next time.